Tactics are the most intimidating part of Football Manager, but in this video, we will dispel 10 common mistakes that you could be making. And I said we, because it's not just me. We've brought in the foremost mind on tactics and Football Manager anywhere in the world, Bustthenet.
Thank you, Zealand. Thanks for having me on today.
This guy is a lot smarter than me at tactics and Football Manager. And that's saying something, because I have a massive brain. But I get to go first, because this is my freaking YouTube channel. Number 1, tight marking is not always the answer. Now, if you see a player absolutely shredding you, you can be remiss in thinking that ticking on the tight marking will mean that your player will stick with them. But if you are dealing with a particularly pesky Erling Haaland, that is not a very good idea. What tight marking is going to do is it's going to bring your player closer to Erling Haaland, which, considering the pace and movement intelligence, which is quantified in the off-the-ball attribute of somebody like Erling Haaland, means it's actually going to be even harder to defend him if you try to get closer to him, because your team and your player in particular in that region probably doesn't have the talent to do so.
Exactly.
So what would you do, Bustthenet, if you were dealing with an Erling Haaland who was running rampant?
I'll break his legs. I'll send it to hard tackle. That's what I'll do. That's what I always do. I tell my players, you see Erling Haaland coming? Don't waste time. Hard tackle the fella. Let him know with your studs in his shoes, feet, legs, somewhere, anywhere. It helps.
The game's not gone after all.
Sometimes when we're playing the game of Football Manager, I think a lot of people seem to think that every single option in the game is there for you to pick. They see all the play instructions, they see all the team instructions, and they go, hey, you know what? This is a new game. This must mean something. So here I am. I'm going to create a tactic. Picking all of these options is a great idea. And nothing could be more further from the truth. Because if you take every single option, you are actually restricting your players even more. You are limiting what your players can do. It is usually a bad option. So you want to keep things as simple as possible. Don't choose every single option.
This drives me crazy. Nothing is more common in the Save Your Save series than when I get a save and you look on the left side of a tactic, and there are so many lines of text. They look at every single part of the game and think that they have to click, well, I'm either dribbling less or running at the defense. You could just let your players figure out what's better in the moment. Or if you have a great dribbler, you could go to their personal player instructions and just tell them to dribble more without encouraging all of the players that are bad at dribbling on your team to dribble in the first place. Number 3, when you are winning, that doesn't mean that you should drop your lines. This is a common misconception because we always talk about parking the bus. And if you take the lead, particularly against a team that you happen to think is better than you, you could be encouraged to drop your line of engagement and your back line back because that's closer to your goal. It feels safer, but it might not be. I recently filmed and did a video where we tried to win a match with every tactic, and we discovered that particularly defensive tactics were often more effective when they were higher up the field because you're able to close down the service to players like Erling Haaland. Even though now that we've broken his legs because of tip number 1, you don't have to worry about him anymore.
That's true. On my streams daily as well, I've been playing with a 4-3-3 DM because I'm in a league where we've got a lot of players who have got 20 in all attributes. It means that I have to play my A game all the time. And we've got this tactic, which is a 4-3-3 DM. And it's got a high line, high defensive line. I attack, I score a goal. But here, I actually swap then to a 4-2-4 DM, which actually has a low defensive line. But because it's a 4-2-4, it's got 4 players playing in the opposition's half, which means I can still put pressure on the opposition. So whenever you want to try and play defensively, you have to think about how you can still apply pressure and how you can still keep your channels defensively solid. So with my 4-2-4 with a low defensive line, it still has a high line of engagement. So we are putting pressure on opposition teams, and it's very common to see us take a 1-0 lead with a 4-3-3 and then score 3 more goals playing a counter-attacking 4-2-4, which is only being played on balanced mentality. So I think at the end of the day, if you're gonna change your lines, the one line you don't drop is the line of engagement. Because a low block and you've got a low defensive line, all you're doing is putting up a big sign and saying, you know what? I'm not attacking you. You come, have fun at my goal. I think that's dumb.
All the players on their team that weren't able to make those runs before because you weren't giving them the space to make those runs, well, now all of a sudden they can make those runs. I find it's particularly dangerous to invite pressure against 5 at the back formations, because if you pin them in their half, they can't go anywhere. But if you invite them into your half, well, then all of a sudden they're going to have a bunch of overwhelming numbers in different spaces and weird late runs that your center backs won't be able to pick up because it's Football Manager.
Yeah, yeehaw caramba.
Whatever that means, yes. The fourth common tactic mistake. Bustthenet, you're up.
The fourth common tactical mistake, and this is such a simple one, choosing the right role for your player. It sounds like a very complicated thing, right? The game actually makes it very easy for you. The game suggests the right roles for your players. So don't, roles dictate how players operate on the pitch, right? So if you're thinking, I want a player to go into the half space, they already have roles there. A Masala goes into the half space, a Carrero operates in the half space, an inside forward operates. There are all these roles that operate in the half space. Going to a player instruction and saying, move into the channels, or thinking that this is a sit narrow is going to help them in the half space, it doesn't. Just choose the right role for the thing that you want them to do. Understand how roles move around the pitch. Because I've seen some really strange tactics where people come to me and they create this role. It's got an attacking role on one flank, complete wingback on attack. Then they put a Mazzala on attack duty, bombing down the pitch. They even have a winger on attack duty. It's 3 very creative roles attacking you down one flank, and it's going to leave you incredibly vulnerable. So you really, really need to think about balance where you think about the roles and duties. It's not the number of defending roles, support roles, attacking roles that means it's a balanced tactic. It just means this in very simple terms. If you're going to attack down that flank, make sure you have a plan for defending. In case you cannot transition the ball into attack, you don't leave yourself wide open. It's really simple, but it's such a common mistake for a lot of people to be making in the game.
I think this goes right at something that people really struggle at with tactics early on in their Football Manager career, which is when you're designing the tactic, you are only thinking about offense or defense, and you're not thinking about both. So you'll design a tactic that has too many players in attack roles, too many creative roles, because all you're thinking about is what the tactic is going to look like when you have the ball, or what you're thinking about is only what your team's going to look like when you don't have the ball. But you're not thinking about the fact that you need to do both over the course of an entire match.
Exactly. It's very important to have a complete idea of how your team attacks with the ball, and then if they fail to attack, how will they look when they lose the ball? Because if you have everybody up in attack and you're leaving the flanks exposed, don't be surprised if you can see the goal. It's that simple.
Well, TIFO football has a great word for this, the rest defense. What does your rest defense look like when you lose the ball? Where is everybody? Can make the difference between having gray hair and not having gray hair.
I've gone bald. All the gray hair dropped a long time ago.
And if you love his beautiful bald head, you'll subscribe to Bustthenet on YouTube. Link in the description. You can also subscribe to this channel, but if you're not already, I'm personally offended.
I would be offended if you're not subscribed to Zealand's channel.
Most common mistake number 5. When you change your tactic, sometimes in free kicks, your tallest players can end up not up. This costs you goals, plural, every season if you do not fix it. So when you make a tactical change, you need to know in your brain who your tallest 3 players are, and if those players are changing positions or coming off the field, you're going to need to go in and adjust your set pieces, because particularly those little free kicks that happen right on the edge of the box, but they're not at a shooting angle, are some of the most dangerous plays in all of Football Manager. And if your star target man striker happens to be one of the 2 guys back on defensive duty, you are costing yourself goals and points every season.
Please check the set piece routines. Nothing can be worse than seeing your 2 defenders counter-attacking on a corner.
This is a mistake that even we make, and we have dedicated our lives to being addicted to this game.
I mean, life wouldn't be fun if without all these little mistakes happening. You know you're on a bad run of form, right? You've lost 6 games on track.
Oh, it never happens to me.
Never happens to you. It just happened to me the other day. So it just happened last stream, 6 games in a row. I was losing. And then on my stream, I did the classic, let's go change tactics. It's going to fix everything. Look for the new meta. I think this tactic is very strong. Let's put it in. Don't ever do that. I do that because it's entertaining. You shouldn't do that because it's life-changing. Okay, it's going to make you want to quit the game. I do it because it's fun. The thing is this, if you are going through a bad run, the easiest fix in the game is actually looking at your players and asking yourself one simple question. Have I been playing them in the right role and position? The second thing you check is going to be their form. And this is surprisingly easy to identify in the game. If you have a player and his last 5 games average has been 7.5, but his average rating for the season has been 7.2, that player is been on a streak in the last 5 games. That is a player you put on the pitch. But players who have suddenly dropped in form, their last 5 games numbers are always going to be lower than their average rating. These are the players you want to pull aside to one corner, knock some sense into their head, discipline them, fine them, deny them sex with their wives for a week. I don't know. You find something you can do in the game, right? Okay, just bench them. That's what you do. So it's really important for you to be able to identify these players. It's not hard to do, but if once you do them, it's going to be a lot easier for you. Then stick to a tactical system that you yourself understand. Play to your players' strengths. Don't change things suddenly. Keep it simple. Fight for the draws. Don't worry about winning games. Try not to concede first to come off a bad run. And then slowly build your confidence. Yeah, I'm talking your confidence because you're the manager first, then build the team's confidence. Don't forget it. You should start feeling confident first before you talk about your team. Yeah, that should work.
If a player has a rating of 6.4 or lower, you can find them a week's wage. Not only will it help get them out of the slump, you might also accidentally improve their work rate in the process. That's just something that you should know is in the game.
It doesn't really happen in real life because it's illegal. So I don't know why it's in the game. Yeah. It is actually illegal.
Don't make them get rid of it. I love the freaking feature. Why are you saying this?
Already players moan and groan in the game and I ignore them. Now I have to find them. And this game is... I do ignore my players anyway, so it's okay. Yeah.
The next mistake that a lot of people make in their tactic actually ties a lot into Busthenet's last point. And I promise you we didn't plan that. We're not that good. But it has to do with overreacting to your opponent. You are not Pep Guardiola. And honestly, most of the time, Pep Guardiola is not Pep Guardiola, right? If you have a tactic and you know it works and you have players that are in roles that you like, you need to come up with a little tactical changes that you can make depending on what type of formation that you're playing against. But making sweeping changes can torpedo your tactical familiarity and obviously take players out of their position to be their best. A great example is in my Twitch save, which you could of course watch on Twitch. You can also watch Bustthenet on Twitch. And if you haven't figured out by now, all of the links are in the description. But in my Twitch save, I play a 4-4-2. That is because I have 3 world-class center forwards on my team, and I want those guys to be on the field all the time because they're the best players on my team. So, switching to a 4-3-3 because I'm scared that the other team is playing a 4-2-3-1 would be out of my best interest because one of those forwards that would normally be able to play wouldn't be playing. So I find a way to adjust my lines, adjust tight marking and closing down to accommodate whatever formation I'm facing with my 4-4-2. Now that process is of course trial and error and a lot of logic and understanding how tactics work, but you should be able to come up with a system of minor changes that allows you to keep your best players in their best roles on the field.
Your voice is so nice, it's distracting me. I'm like trying to figure out what to say next, but it's true. It's true. When I was on my 6th game losing streak, because it happens, I actually shifted to a formation that I've been using since FM17. It's called Red Machine. So I've used it in 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. It's worked for me 7 seasons in a row. It's one of my strongest tactics that I've got in the game. And guess what? We had dropped out of Champions League spots. I was going to lose my job. I was going to lose the faith of my players. Or I was going to lose all my Twitch followers. And then we went on, I think it was a 12-game unbeaten streak. We managed to claw ourselves back and finish the Champions League spots. So, yes, if you stick to a formation you know and you have been using it, nothing could be better because you will know the kind of players that you need. You will know the kind of changes and tweaks that you can make. And that is probably going to be one of the easiest things for you to do in the game. All right, now you've chosen to go gegenpressing. Your midfield is loaded with the best technical players you could find. Right, they're great. They've got 17 for first touch. They've got brilliant numbers for crossing, vision, decisions, flair. You love these players. So you've gone out there and made a gegenpressing tactic. Only one slight problem. They don't have aggression, low aggression. The very simple mistake a lot of people are making with the game is thinking that aggression doesn't matter. Aggression is a very important attribute in Football Manager. You need it for a good striker. You need it for a good defender. You need it for any player who needs to win the ball. Don't worry if he's going to get sent off. Aggression doesn't send a player off. The dirtiness rating is the rating in the game that affects a player's likelihood to be sent off. So the next time you play the game of Football Manager and you're asking yourself, why didn't this player chase after that guy to try and win the ball back? It's probably down to his low aggression.
And if you're sitting there going, where's the dirtiness attribute, Zealand? I can't see it. Well, that's because it is in the category of hidden attributes. You'll see it in scouting reports as has a competitive streak, which can occasionally lead to him bending the rules.
Yeah, the interesting thing about competitive streak is this. You don't want any midfielders, you don't want any defenders, but strikers with a competitive streak, they are quite interesting because they commit fouls high up the pitch. I've seen one of my strikers run all the way back, do a sliding tackle on an opponent to prevent a goal scoring opportunity. The striker beat the defenders to the ball. He didn't get sent off, luckily for me. It's definitely something you want to consider if you're asking yourself that question, right? You need somebody to break up play once in a while. That dirtiness rating can come in quite handy.
The next mistake that you often make in tactics, and this is one that comes specifically from SYS, where I get to look into your saves, the Save Your Save series. Don't focus on a particular area constantly as a part of your tactic, because a lot of people will look at this section of the in possession instructions, and they'll think, oh, I need to choose to focus the play down the left, through the middle, or down the right, or quite often on the wings in that fashion. Now, Football Manager SI, the people that make Football Manager, have come out and said that that is intended for in-game tweaks, because if you focus on a particular part of the field, it will absolutely exhaust the players in that particular part of the field. And so, unless there are certain conditions that are met, you really shouldn't be focusing down a particular part of the field as part of your base tactic.
Actually, I like focus play down the flanks because if you have a team that's got great stamina and work rate and acceleration, and you focusing play down the flanks, then the opposition team is going to get tired very fast because they are the ones that are being split up. Because when you focus play, more action is happening down the flanks. They've got a lot of tracking to do. You're tiring the opposition out. So I think SI just don't want us to use it too much. Otherwise, the AI is going to feel a bit knackered after about 30 minutes.
If you have better athletes than the other team, then this is actually a way that you can break the game in a positive way.
Exactly. I like doing this a lot.
So you're all about running and violence.
Definitely. Football Manager is my chance to be completely immersed in the game. I opt to enjoy myself by watching pixels get injured. I'm a strange person. Very strange.
Genius is often strange. The other huge mistake you're making in your tactic, you're not signing good enough players to do what you're asking them to do. So just sign better players and your tactic will be better.
Actually, that's the truth. I mean, at the end of the day, you pop in a preset tactic. You find the right players. You're probably going to do okay.
People are like, oh, I'm overwhelmed with tactics. Like, I don't know what to do. You can win the Champions League with a preset tactic, making no changes to it. And if you just go sign better players than the other team has, you'll win. You can get really into the weeds of tactics. That's the whole point of this video. You don't have to win in Football Manager.
At the end of the day, you sign better players. You go out there, 90 minutes, you got to win the game. How do you make sure that you win the game? For heaven's sakes, your squad is 22 players, not 11 players on the pitch. You know, you can make substitutions around the 60th minute mark. Please bring them on, especially for those positions on the pitch that are critical to you. Like if I play a 4-2-4, my two DMs are critical, my two wingbacks are critical. So what I do is in the 60th minute mark, I don't care if you've scored, you had a 10. I don't care if your mother is in the stands watching you play, you're coming off. Those positions on the pitch, I make sure fresh players are there all the time.
You know, Bustthenet, I think we've made the world a better place today.
Yes, we've told people today that they should hard tackle Erling Haaland, that they should resort to violence where they can, and that the dirtiness rating is actually useful at certain times in the game, and aggression is a valuable attribute. Ultimately, we've also told people to keep things simple when it comes to tactics, which is the main purpose of today's video.
Also, watch this video to learn more about something. I haven't decided what I'm going to put there yet, but it will be educational and about Football Manager, so watch that thing right there.